that's focused on creating systems that are capable of performing tasks that normally require human intelligence. So think about things like recognizing patterns, being able to learn from experiences. AI is the broad field. ChatGPT is a specific application of AI called a large language model. Well, it's a type of large language model, and it's called a generative pre-trained transformer. And ChatGPT in itself was developed by a company called OpenAI and first released in November of 2022. And the focus of it is to generate human-like text based on the input you give it. So it's learning, you're training the model as you use it. So ChatGPT is probably the most popular, but there are others that are becoming more popular. So Microsoft has Copilot, Google has Gemini. There are a bunch of homegrown GPTs, which I'll show you as well throughout. So there's a lot of different uses, but we'll focus mostly on ChatGPT for this presentation. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how AI is trending in manufacturing. So the importance of AI really spans anywhere from enhancing efficiencies and productivity all the way to enabling more adaptable processes. And so I won't read all of these to you, but a few that I think are really significant where we're starting to see a lot of trends specifically around predictive maintenance. So moving from just preventative maintenance to being able to predict maintenance. A study in Deloitte showed that companies implementing AI were shown to be able to reduce the time required to plan maintenance by as much as 50%. And reduce overall maintenance costs by as much as 5 to 10%, which is really great. We're seeing it a lot in quality control, where we're seeing operational efficiencies increase and reductions in defects up to 90%, right? Which is amazing to think about. And then a big one I think is workforce, because of course, there's a lot of concern around AI taking over jobs, right? Well, despite those fears, the World Economic Forum put out a report back in 2020 that showed by next year, 2025, they're expecting that AI will create some 97 million new jobs, and that's across various sectors, including manufacturing. So a lot of good trends there with AI. All right, so let's talk about how to use it in your daily work. All right, so before we jump in, let's first define frontline worker in manufacturing, because that's really who this presentation is geared toward. So any employee directly involved in the production of goods. So these folks are working on the manufacturing floor, operating equipment, assembling products, doing quality checks, performing maintenance. I would say even purchasing products. They're crucial to the manufacturing process because they handle the physical creation and assembly of products that the company sells. So if you are a frontline worker or you supervise or manage frontline workers, I think you'll find this presentation helpful. All right, so before we jump in, Susan, if you could help me launch a quick poll, I want to know, what do you think is most important to frontline workers in manufacturing? So if you would, please take that poll for us.
Leave the poll open for another couple of seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results, Adrian.
All right, awesome. All right, good. Yeah, all really good answers. And most of you said all the above, and that's exactly right. So as I was doing research, preparing for this presentation, I found that all five of these areas were listed as most valuable and important to frontline workers. And so we're going to touch on all of these throughout the presentation. All right, very good. Thank you for that. All right, let's keep going. So, real quick, how to access ChatGPT. Here's the website. You can go on and create an account. If you already have an account and you want to join along as we're going through this, please feel free. Otherwise, I'll have it up on my screen to walk through. So, forgive me, I'll kind of be going back and forth between the presentation and the tool so I can show you how it's working. So, first area of importance to frontline workers, we said is communication. So, how can we make teamwork better with ChatGPT? Well, one really cool thing the tool can do is translate languages. I have one client in particular. They speak multiple languages in their facility. One whole side is English speaking, the other side is Spanish speaking. So they have to maintain their documentation in both English and in Spanish. And so ChatGPT can help you with that. So let's look at an example. I'm going to pull up the tool. So here's the ChatGPT home screen. And so it has the 4.0 is what we're using, the for the most complex task. And I'm going to give the ChatGPT a quality policy. Okay, so here's my policy for high touch solutions. And I'm going to ask it translate that quality policy from English to Spanish. Okay. And just like that, ChatGPT is going to start translating that for us into Spanish. Okay. Let's say you're using a different language, translate it to German. Okay. And just like that, it's going to translate to German. But what I want you to notice about that was notice I didn't retype the whole quality policy again, right? I didn't have to do that. So it's a GPT, right? So it's giving us a human-like interaction, human-like communication. So it automatically knows when I say translate it, because we're in the middle of a conversation, the tool knows that the it I'm referring to is the quality policy above. And so it's going to take that and just continue the conversation. Okay. All right, so that's one example. You can also use it to send reminders and alerts. So if you are already using project management tools or communication tools like Slack or Microsoft Teams or Trello, or even if you have a custom system in your organization, you can integrate GPTs into your systems and use them for communication. So this picture that I have over here to the right is actually a snapshot of Microsoft Teams. And if you notice at the bottom left, there's a button here called Apps. If you click on that plus sign and just type in GPT or Chat GPT, it's going to bring up a lot of different search results. So these are actually custom GPTs that people or companies have created that you can integrate right into Microsoft Teams. And they work much like ChatGPT, but again, now it's integrated into your Microsoft Teams. Some of them do require a subscription, but there are some that you can try out for free. And so you can find different chat bots or assistants that you can use as part of your right in your Microsoft Teams or Trello or other tools. Okay. You can also use it to enhance internal communication. So if you need to summarize an email or a meeting transcript, my husband uses this a lot. Let's say you are having a meeting in Teams or in Zoom. Now, Zoom has an AI assistant built into it now if you've used the current version, but you can pull the transcript out of Zoom or out of Teams and put it into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize the meeting based on the transcript, and it will do that for you. You can even go so far as to say, summarize the meeting, put it in a table and develop a list of action items along with responsible party and due date. And it will do that too. I don't have time to show you here, but you can use it to help you summarize emails. You can also use it to help with conflict resolution, believe it or not. So if you run into certain scenarios in your, business, you can ask the tool to help you come up with a conflict resolution. And it can help you write responses. I use that probably once a week. Help me rewrite this email in a professional tone, or in a positive tone, and it can help you. And then lastly, it can help with feedback and suggestions. And so that's what I actually want to show you an example of. So here's our scenario. Steve leads an effort at Tiger Inc. to gather feedback on workplace issues and improvements. Some employees have recently started to complain that no one is addressing their ideas, and Steve would like to organize the information by type of issue and develop an action plan for management to address. All right, so here's our scenario. So Steve has a list, much like the one you see here, that has employee names, workplace issues. Now, I just so happen to have this in Microsoft Word. It could be in Excel or another format, but I'm going to go to the tool, to ChatGPT, and I'm going to actually attach that file. So you can see you can pull it from multiple places. I have it on my desktop. So I'm going to pull in workplace issues and improvement suggestions. All right. And I'm going to ask it to, um, I'm going to tell the tool, I will provide you with a list of workplace issues and improvements. Take the information, anonymize it, organize it, and then put the results in a table. And so just like that, it's going to pull in that file and start to organize that by type of issue, right? So remember, what he was trying to get to though was an action plan. So now that I have it organized by type, I want you to develop an action plan to address. And just like that, ChatGPT is going to start generating an action plan. So there's my type of issue. It's giving me suggestions, action steps. It's even recommending a responsible party and timeline, okay, along with expected outcomes. So now I have a list that I can give to management, or Steve has a list he can give to management to help them go off and begin addressing those concerns. Okay. So then what's the benefit? So now management has an actionable plan. Hopefully you have increased employee morale because ideas are being addressed, continuous improvement in your facility, and then a manageable plan for leadership to use. Okay. All right. So another area of importance to frontline workers, we said, is quality. So how can you use ChatGPT to keep quality top notch? So one big thing that the tool can do is help you analyze data. So it can look at production data, it can look at checklist data and tell you if something's wrong. So let's do an example. Let's do an example of that. All right. So one thing that I do want to point out, you have baseline Chat GPT, but if you look over here to the left, there's a tab here to explore GPTs. So there are other GPTs that you can use beyond just Chat GPT, okay, for writing, for productivity, and so forth. There's one that I really like called Diagrams and Data. And I'm going to use that for this example, and you'll see why in just a minute. So I'm going to upload, I have a list of defects. So let's say in my facility, I have, and here's in my Excel spreadsheet, I have a check sheet of beverage bottling defects, okay, that this operator collected throughout a week. All right, so once again, I'm going to attach that in ChatGPT. And then I'm going to ask it to use this to develop a simple diagram of the attached defect types. So again, it's going to pull from that. Hopefully this won't take too long. If not, I've done it already and I can just show you the results. But it's going to go ahead and start analyzing that data for us. And then you'll see in a minute, it'll actually pull in the, and again, if this takes too long, I can show you. All right. So let me just go here. All right. So it actually pulled it in for me. It recognized that these were, the data you provided seems to be a table tracking beverage bottling defects. And it actually gives me a table of those defects. Okay. Let's go back for a second and see if let's try it one more time. Because I really want you, there's something important I want you to see from this. So let's give it one more second and see if it can pull that in. Okay, there we go. All right, so again, it's telling you what it sees in the spreadsheet. It contains data related to beverage bottling defects. They've cleaned it, and then they're going to use a flow chart to represent each defect type, and I'm going to allow that to happen. And so it's talking to blocks and arrows right now, and then it's going to develop that chart for us. So, so this is one thing that's interesting about the tool. Sometimes you see that in one case, it gave me a diagram. In this case, it decided to pull a flow chart. So you can ask it to give you different things. But one thing that I wanted to highlight that I really wanted to show you is that with this particular GPT, diagrams and data, it will actually suggest for you other options. So you can tell it to create a pie chart. You can ask it to start examining the data. Where are the most defects happening? So with diagrams and data, you can do a lot more detailed analysis than you can in just ChatGPT. So that's what I really wanted to highlight to show you there. Okay. All right. So let's keep going then. All right. So another thing, let me get back to the right slide here. You can use it for troubleshooting. So it can offer solutions based on what's worked for you in the past. It can suggest improvements to you, so it can propose better ways to do tasks. You can even use it to help you innovate, so come up with new ways to use materials, processes. So for instance, when we talk about troubleshooting, another example, let's say I have a hydraulic press in my facility and I want to know, how do I perform a basic maintenance check on a hydraulic, right? Let me switch over to another internet connection. There we go. Give me one second. There we go. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Okay, good. I'm getting thumbs up. Perfect, perfect. All right, so now let me get my chat GPT back online here. All right, so let's try this again. So let's say I want to perform again I want to know how to perform a basic maintenance check on a hydraulic press. So just like that, it's going to give me um, the directions for how to do that, right? And it's going to take me through. So let's say this is helpful, but I want to also take this and make it a checklist that my operator can go out and use to actually perform this task. Because this is great information, but I want to make it something that my operator can use. So just like that, I can ask it, put this in a checklist for an operator to sign. All right. So now it's taking the information and it's actually organizing for me in a checklist that an operator can go out and use day to day, right, to perform maintenance along with with signature and date. So here I can copy it, I can drop it into a Word document, and I can go off and use it. Okay. So that's pretty helpful to save you some time day to day. All right. So let's look at an example then. Let's look at another scenario for quick problem diagnosis. So Jackson is a CNC operator, and his company just recently integrated ChatGPT as an AI assistant on the machines in their plant floor. So one morning, Jackson noticed that the CNC machine he was using started producing parts with uneven finishes, which wasn't typical. He checked the settings, everything seemed normal. Unsure of next steps, he decided to seek assistance. So Jackson goes over to the AI to get some help. And so again, Jackson types in, my CNC machine is producing uneven finishes. What could be the cause? And so again, the tool is going to print out general causes of what could be the issue with uneven finishes. And so now Jackson can take this and do some additional troubleshooting to try to figure out and narrow down what the issue is. And so let's say he does that and he finds out, oh, the tool is worn and it's outside of calibration. All right. So what should I do next? And so, just like that, it's going to give Jackson directions on how to handle those issues specifically. So again, stop the machine, inspect the worn out tool, calibrate the tool, so on and so forth. All right. So let's say Jackson is able to use this, but then his supervisor says, you know what? If this issue comes up again, I might need to use this to train other operators on similar issues. So I want to make this into a training that we can use for new operators. So now I can say, take this information and make it a PowerPoint presentation that I can use for training. And so now, just like that, it's going to give me a template for slides that I can take off and that I can take and use as a presentation. And I don't have time to show you, unfortunately, but you could actually go a step further and ask it to write the content for any particular slide. So write the content for slide 2, write the content for slide 3, right? So you can use ChatGPT as much or as little as you need to. But again, I saw someone put in the chat, yes, always make sure you verify the content because although the tool is way, way, way better, in terms of how it's progressed from 2022, there are still some things that you need to check to make sure it's accurate. Okay. All right, very good. So what are the benefits of using it in that scenario? So now the issue was resolved much faster. Jackson was able to save valuable time. He had a real-time troubleshooting assistant, which helped reduce his downtime. It helps ensure more consistent quality and it's instilled confidence in him as a machine operator because he was able to find the answer himself and didn't have to go off and potentially look for someone else to ask. Okay. All right. So the third area we said that was important to frontline workers, knowledge and change management. And so, in my opinion, this is really where ChatGPT shines because you can use it, you have access to all of the internet, right? So you can use it for things like training and continuous learning and onboarding new employees. So it can provide new employees with instructional content, answers to FAQs. A good example of that, let's go back to the tool. Let's say you are onboarding a new team member and you want to create a 1 month onboarding training plan for someone new to manufacturing and assembly in a manufacturing assembly role. All right. So just like that, it's going to create for you specific to manufacturing assembly, a 1 month onboarding training plan. You could tailor this, right? It could be for welding, it could be for purchasing agent, it could be 2 months or 3 months, right? So you can take this and tailor it however you need it to be. And then go one step further and ask it, make this a checklist with sign-offs. So now it'll create for me a checklist that the employee and trainer can sign off on, okay, for each week of training. I could ask it to put it in a table. If a table format is better, you can put it in a table. And so we'll talk a little bit too about how to organize prompts so that you get exactly what you're looking for. Okay. All right. So that's again another example. You can use it to for documentation and reporting. So in generating and maintaining your documents, helping you compile daily reports. So as we saw, you can use it to create maintenance records and log incidents. And so really the overall goal and the benefit is that it's going to reduce the administrative burden. Instead of having to develop, try to think of, okay, I need a form. How do I want that form to look? Let me go out on the internet and find an example of that form. Now the AI can help generate a form for you that you can tweak as needed. It'll even, believe it or not, help you develop pictures for your training material. So let's say you have a welding procedure and you want to generate a picture to add to that procedure. So generate a picture for me of a woman in a manufacturing facility welding for use in my welding procedure or for use in my training presentation. All right, and so just like that, it's going to create an image for you that you can tweak. If you don't like the shirt, the color shirt, you can say make her shirt yellow, right? So there's so many things you can do to tweak that, and so now you have images even that you can use to add to your materials. Okay. All right, very good. So let's look at another scenario. So Cliff is a newly hired quality manager at Acme and is therefore new to quality management processes and procedures at Acme. During a recent leadership meeting, there was some discussion and confusion about who's responsible for generating, assigning, and following up on corrective actions. It was discovered the information is not easy to locate or being communicated to staff. Now, I know this would never happen where any of you work, right? But it's happening at Acme. So let's see how Cliff is going to handle that. So Cliff, as you can imagine, being a quality manager is pretty busy. He does not have a lot of time to go read through an entire procedure. So, what I can do if I'm Cliff, I can take that procedure. Okay, so here's my corrective and preventative action procedure. I'm going to just attach it in ChatGPT, and then I'm going to tell the tool, use this procedure or using this procedure, who is responsible for corrective actions, right? And so just like that, the my assistant, my AI assistant is combing through that procedure for me to find the answer. So you can imagine if you have, 100-page document, 100-page work instruction, or and you're trying to find something easily, or your operator is in the middle of working on a piece of, working on the line, and they're trying to find something easily by having your own personal procedures, SOPs and things loaded, work instructions loaded into the AI, you can just use that to help search for things easily. So now it tells me exactly who's responsible, and I can ask it, because remember Cliff's other question, how long do I have to respond to a corrective action? So again, because it's an ongoing conversation, it knows that we're still referencing the same procedure, right? And then it's going to tell you how long you have to respond. So you can imagine saves Cliff valuable time without having to comb through that entire procedure. So there's hopefully the benefit is there's a reduction in confusion about process steps and better adherence to procedures. It can help ensure consistent standard work. And then, of course, again, it's instilling confidence in those team members because they can find the answer on their own. All right. The next area of importance, and this is a big one, right? Safety. So we can use ChatGPT to get quick advice on how to handle um, safety, hazardous materials or questions we have about safety. We can use it to monitor safety conditions and provide safety alerts. So again, similar to how we talked about back in communication, where you can integrate GPTs into your other systems, you can integrate ChatGPT, excuse me, into your systems to provide real-time safety alerts about things like wearing protective equipment and protocols and things like that. So let's see an example of that. Excuse me. So let's say I'm using chlorine in my facility and I want to know how do I best dispose of chlorine and is there a safety data sheet for chlorine? All right, so just like that, it's going to give me information about how to um, dispose dispose of chlorine in my facility, and it's going to give me input about the safety data sheet. Okay. Now, if I want to know specifically where can I find the safety data sheet, I can ask that too. So where can I find the SDS? So if I type that in, it's going to give me, because once again, right, it's going out to the internet and it's going to find for you exactly where to find that information. So it tells you the MS, the online version. And it didn't do it this time, but it has in the past. It will actually give you a link directly to the website in some cases, like this MSDS. But either way, you can go out and search for it and be able to find it. Okay. All right. So let's do it. Let's look at another example or scenario. So Tina is the safety manager at Steel Toes. The company is expanding and taking on additional people and equipment resources. Because the company is growing, they need to acquire additional forklifts and hire additional forklift drivers. So this prompts Tina to think about whether the business is even up to date on the most recent guidelines for operating forklifts in their facility. All right. So now Tina can go to her computer and she can ask, what are the current OSHA regulations for operating a forklift? Right. And just like that, it's going to pull in the requirements for powered trucks, right? It's going to take you exactly to the exact requirement in OSHA 29 CFR, right? And so it's going to give her the latest guidelines for operating a forklift. But she wants to know, okay, I need to get everybody up to date on training. So I want to ask, how often do my forklift drivers need to be trained? And so instead of her having to go off and read that entire requirement, the 29 CFR, it's going to pull from that requirement and tell you exactly what the training requirements are. So initial training, refresher training, and so forth. All right, let's say she wants to go one step further and say, okay, our daily check sheet signed off. How will we know people are checking forklifts? Is there a daily check sheet required for forklifts per OSHA? And again, it's going right to that requirement and saying, yes, here are OSHA's requirements for daily check sheets. All right. And then again, I can go one step further and I can say, provide me with a check sheet. And then it's going to create a checklist for you. So now Tina has a checklist based on what we know. right, that she can go off and use, that the operators can use day to day or from shift to shift, right, to check forklifts. And then she can copy it and paste it, put it right in Word and be able to use that. Okay. So what were the benefits there? Again, Tina was able to be proactive because it helped her ensure that as the company grows, she can keep up with statutory and regulatory requirements. So hopefully there's a reduction in audit findings or even fines, right? Now you have properly trained staff and a safer work environment and better adherence to your processes and procedures. All right, very good. All right, so the last area here of importance to frontline workers, continuous improvement. So there's a lot you can do here. I'll just highlight a few things. You can use it for customer and supplier feedback. So if you have, for instance, a supplier that is routinely providing defective product, you can use it to help you write an email to that supplier. Let me show you an example of that. So let's say, again, we have a supplier that's continuously giving us poor quality products. So I say, we routinely receive defective products from supplier X. Write an email to supplier X in a positive and professional tone, outlining the situation and noting the requirement for corrective action. All right, and just like that, it's going to start to generate for us an email that I can send to that supplier. Or if you need an email to your customer, right, it'll help you generate that, right? So it saves you valuable time. It can help with audit results. So let's say you are someone who is responsible for audits or responding to audit results, excuse me, in your facility. I can use it there as well. So let me show you an example of that. Um, let's say you received a non-conformance, you're ISO 9001 certified, and you received a non-conformance for not um, integrating your internal audit results into your corrective action system. And you want to write a response in the format of an ISO 9001 corrective action, right? So just like that, I can type it in. And so now ChatGPT is actually helping me tailor my response. So here's my non-conformance statement. It's going to actually do root cause analysis. Now you can ask it. There, I've done this search before, and there are times when it will give me root cause analysis in the form of 5 whys. So I can take this and say, redo the root cause analysis in the format of 5 whys, or redo it in the format of a fishbone diagram, right? So it can do that for you. It'll give me my containment or immediate correction, my plan, my action steps. And then it even goes back and talks about how to verify effectiveness. So for those of you that are familiar with management systems, this is actually stepping through the format of a response for 9001 to a corrective action. So imagine if you have to respond to audit results, how much time this can save you just with helping you come up with responses. Now, of course, you still have to go back and do the legwork, right? But this at least kind of gives you a place to start if you're not sure even where to start that response. All right, and then lastly, I can use it for change management. So let's see an example. So in this scenario, Kate, who is the owner of Summit Fab, is interested in continuous improvement. Her company's growing quickly and she wants to implement a new ERP system. So she meets with the leadership team to determine the best next steps. Okay. So she's rolling out an ERP, new ERP system. And so Kate is going to go back to her system and ask ChatGPT, we're rolling out a new ERP. How do we plan for this change and what risks do we need to consider? And so just like that now, it's giving Kate and her management staff a detailed plan for how to roll out a new ERP system in their facility. So anywhere from assembling a team and implementation, piloting, and then it's again, like we asked it, it's even giving us risks that we need to consider, right? So financial risks and so on and so forth. And then Kate could even go one step further and say, okay, this is great. How do I communicate this change, right? Because I want to make sure we communicate it out effectively. And so just like that, I can ask it to develop a communication plan for staff, and it's going to develop a communication plan for me. So objectives, the key message, your audience, and so forth, right? Which is pretty awesome. So then what's the benefit there for Kate and her management team? Um, Now she has a better idea up front of the risk in making that change. Um, so hopefully there's a reduction in risk and better cost control, an overall smoother transition, and increased buy-in because there's a communication plan to get that out to the team. All right. So I wish I could show, I wish we had time. I could show you. There's so many things I could show you with ChatGPT. But just in essence of time, I wanted to touch on the things that are important for frontline workers, but then I also want to touch on briefly how to optimize results. So there are really six key, when we talk about everything you saw me type in was called a prompt, right? And so you can imagine the better your prompts are, the better results you're going to get. So there are really six key things to keep in mind when you're designing a prompt. The first one is the task. So understand what task are you asking the AI to do. So use action verbs, generate, give, write, analyze. Look at the context. Remember, we're out on the internet, so there's endless possibilities, and we want to limit that. So think about the context. What's the person's background? What does success look like? What environment are you in? If you have exemplars, use examples. Those are helpful. Think about the persona. So who do you want the AI to be? One good thing to think about is, for this particular task, who do I wish I had access to? And write it in ask the tool to write it in that persona. So write this as if you were an IT professional, or write this as if you were a production supervisor. You can ask it to write in that persona. Think about the format. What do you want the end result to look like? Should it be in a table? Does it need to have three columns? Does it need to have an action party? And then think about the tone. How do you want it to feel? Casual, formal, or so forth. So if I had to put all these together, here's an example of what something like that might look like. So I'm typing into ChatGPT, telling the tool, you are a production supervisor for an assembly process. That's the persona. And you are having continuous issues with poor quality related to frequent turnover of staff. That's my context. Write an email to your boss, Stephanie Tanner, sharing this news. So there's my task, right? Write it. This email should not be too long and should be conveyed in a positive and confident tone. So that's my tone, and a little bit of format. And then use a format like the following. So again, here's my exemplar. Here's my example. So if I was to take all that um, and put it into ChatGPT, okay, now it's going to generate for me, based on that prompt, it's going to generate for me an email exactly the way I asked it to. So here's my boss, dear Stephanie. Hope this email finds you well. I've noticed frequent turnover, so on and so forth. So, and it put it in the format that I asked it to, right? So those are some things to think about when you are writing a prompt to help make your prompt responses a little bit more robust. All right, so then how can you get started with ChatGPT if you want to use it in your facility? So the first thing I would say is to do a needs assessment. So look at areas where you think integrating AI may be valuable or provide valuable and get feedback from frontline workers on things that they could use help with. Um, and then evaluate your infrastructure. This is key, right? As we saw just in this presentation, right? You can have emails, you can have, I'm sorry, issues with the internet. So if you have internet connectivity issues, or people need to have access to computers and tablets and phones. So make sure people have access to those things to be able to use it, and that you have a strong infrastructure. Also, do some train the AI. So like we saw, you can customize the GPT with your own company's procedures, with specific manufacturing knowledge, even with machine manuals, right? So maybe there's equipment or machinery that you have that's fairly old, or maybe it's a legacy equipment and you've lost the machine manual or something. You can use ChatGPT to help you, go out on the internet and possibly find that. But even if you have machine manuals and things like that that you want to keep, you can load those into the system and use those going forward, to train the tool that people can use. You can also integrate it. So look for areas to integrate the GPT with your other existing ERP systems and software that you're using. All right, and then start to train users. So train your frontline workers, organize workshops, do demo sessions similar to how we're doing today with this webinar to get them familiar with how to use it. Discuss safety protocols. So this is key, right? Set guidelines for when to rely on GPT and when to seek a human, right? So especially if it's safety critical, we want people to understand that they need to go seek human expertise in certain situations and not just rely too heavily on the tool. And then gather feedback. So there's some gathering of feedback built into the GPT itself. You might have noticed that as you're doing searches, you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's training the tool. But we also want to get feedback from frontline workers on how it's working. All right, and then lastly, just some ongoing considerations. So, make sure as you roll this out, you have continuous monitoring and updates. So regularly update the system. I cannot emphasize enough how fast this technology is changing. So you have to monitor performance. You have to keep it up to date with new information. Not only the tool itself, but then the manufacturing environment, look at uptime, how well is it working. Another big key thing is data security and privacy. This in itself is worth having a conversation before you even begin. So with IT in your facility, how are we going to keep data secure and private? So ensure that any interactions with the GPT are secure. So now the free version, the older version 3.5 is pretty much gone out. That was open to the internet. The newer version 4.0 does require a subscription. It's about $20 a month. And that one is said to be a little bit more secure. And so if you have data that you're putting into it that you don't want to be shared internet wide, the 4.0 version is said to be secure to do that. But I would still want to make sure you take steps to protect sensitive data and intellectual property. Perform a pilot. So roll it out in a controlled environment first, and then take the insights from that pilot phase and use it to scale and expand into other areas of departments, and look for additional customization or training that you can do. And then lastly, awareness and promotion. So make sure you're communicating the benefits. Again, a lot of people are nervous that AI will take over their jobs. So look for people in your organization that are early adopters, that really like the tool, that really want to use it, and use their success to help motivate other team members to use the tool.